The wind howls outside, rattling the windows as waves crash against the rocks below. The beam of light sweeps across the dark sea, cutting through the storm like a watchful eye. It's just you and the endless ocean. No city lights, no voices, no company except for the rhythmic sound of the turning lamp. Life as a lighthouse keeper isn't for everyone. It's lonely, repetitive, and demanding. Every night, the staircase creaks under steady footsteps as the beacon is checked and the records are updated. The weather is logged, the machinery maintained, and the vast, unpredictable sea watched over. Then one day, everything stops. A ship arrives for a routine check, expecting the usual sight. A flag waving, smoke rising from the chimney, a keeper stepping out to greet them. But instead, silence. The door is closed, the fire has long gone cold, and the lighthouse stands tall, its lights still turning, but the keepers are gone. And if you think that it's just a story, think again, because it really happened. Lighthouses have existed for thousands of years, guiding sailors through treacherous waters. One of the most famous early examples was the Pharos of Alexandria, built around 280 BC. Towering over 100 meters, it relied on fire to signal ships, a primitive but effective system. Over time, technology improved. Early lighthouses used coal or oil lamps, but in 1822, Augustin Jean Fresnel introduced the revolutionary Fresnel lens, which allowed light to travel farther with less fuel. This design became the standard, creating the sweeping beams recognized today. But keeping a lighthouse operational required more than just a powerful light. Many were also equipped with foghorns designed to send distinct signals through thick mist. Every piece of equipment had to be maintained with precision, and in remote locations like the Flannan Isles, this responsibility rested solely on the keepers. Their days were filled with routine and discipline. They worked in shifts to ensure the lights remained functional, often battling extreme weather conditions. Supplies arrived only once every few weeks, and contact with the outside world was minimal. It was a lonely but structured life. Which is why the disappearance of the three keepers was so unsettling. So how did three men simply vanish? What happened on that remote island in December 1900s? To get to the heart of this mystery, we need to travel to Scotland, to a cluster of desolate, wind-battered islands known as the Flannan Isles. These 7 rocky outcrops, often called the Seven Hunters, sit in the harsh waters of the Outer Hebrides, their jagged cliffs rising defiantly against the relentless North Atlantic. Isolated, uninhabited, and constantly under siege by the elements, it is easy to see why these islands have always carried an air of mystery. The largest of the 7 is Eilean Mor. Despite its name, meaning Big Island, it isn't particularly large, nor is it hospitable. But it does hold something significant: the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. Built at the highest point of Eilean Mor, this lighthouse was designed to stand as a beacon of safety, guiding ships away from the treacherous coastline. But as history would prove, it would also become the setting for one of the strangest disappearances in maritime history. The lighthouse wasn't always there. In fact, before its construction, the island was known only for its eerie ruins. Two crumbling stone structures, believed to be the remnants of an ancient chapel, and a dwelling. According to historical records, these were called the Bothies of the Clan MacPhail. And while little is known about their origins, they added to the island's already ghostly atmosphere. In 1896, the British Board of Trade approved plans for the construction of a lighthouse on Eilean Moor. But building something in such a remote and unforgiving location was no easy task. Work didn't officially begin until December 7, 1899, under the direction of engineer D. Allen Stevenson and contractor George Lawson of Rutherglen. The total cost of the project, which included not just the tower itself, but also landing platforms and staircases carved into the rock, was £6,914. Adjusted for modern inflation, that's close to £900,000. Building the lighthouse wasn't just about placing a beacon on a rock. It also required infrastructure to support the keepers. Since they couldn't bring their families to live on the island, special dwellings were built for them at Briscalit, a small shore station on the Isle of Lewis. This location was chosen for its proximity to Loch Roag or Loch Rogue, a sea loch that provided a safe anchorage for the lighthouse tender, a ship responsible for transporting supplies and personnel. The shore station itself cost about £3,526, or about £460,000 today. Communication between the Flannan Isles and the mainland was particularly non-existent. There were no radios, no telephones, just a solitary observer named Roderick Mackenzie. His job was simple but crucial. From his vantage point at Gallan Head, 18 miles away, he watched the lighthouse for any irregularities. If the lights ever failed, he was to report it immediately to the Northern Lighthouse Board in Edinburgh by telegram. For this responsibility, he was paid £8 a year, a modest sum, but an essential role in ensuring the safety of passing ships. As for the lighthouse itself, it was a state-of-the-art for its time. It used a powerful first-order Fresnel lens, capable of projecting light nearly 24 nautical miles. That's about 44 kilometers. A steam-powered foghorn was also installed to warn sailors when visibility was poor. The entire setup was meant to be a dependable lifeline for those navigating these treacherous waters. Yet, despite all of this planning, despite the care and precision put into ensuring the lighthouse functioned perfectly, something happened just over a year after it became operational. What could have happened on that lonely island? At the time of the disappearance, the Flannan Isles lighthouse was under the watch of 3 men: James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. These weren't amateurs or inexperienced workers. They were seasoned keepers who understood the dangers of their job. Ducat, the principal keeper, had nearly 2 decades of service under his belt. Marshall, the assistant keeper, was a former seaman turned lighthouse worker, and MacArthur, an occasional keeper, was trusted enough to step in when needed. These were men accustomed to harsh conditions, isolation, and routine. The first sign that something was wrong came on December 15, 1900s. A passing steamer, the Arctur, noted that the lighthouse beacon wasn't shining. But in those days, communication wasn't instantaneous. The report of the unlit lighthouse didn't immediately trigger alarm bells. It wasn't until December 26, when the relief crew aboard the Hesperus finally arrived, that the mystery began to unfold. Captain Harvey, commanding the Hesperus, expected to see the keepers waiting for their arrival, as was standard protocol. But as the ship approached, the island remained eerily still. No movement, no response, not even when the ship sounded its horn. A distress rocket was fired. Still, nothing. Sensing that something was very wrong, Relief Keeper Joseph Moore was sent ashore. Alone, he climbed the steep, rugged path toward the lighthouse, likely expecting to find the keepers inside, perhaps asleep or caught up in their duties. But when he entered, what he found left him shaken. The lighthouse itself was in near perfect order. The lamps had been trimmed, the lens was clean, and the kitchen looked as though someone had just stepped away from a meal. There was no sign of a struggle, no overturned furniture, no broken glass, nothing to suggest violence or panic. But two key details stood out. 2 sets of outdoor clothing were missing, and the final logbook entries were strange. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Moore returned to the Hesperus, and Captain Harvey quickly assembled a small team to investigate further. That night, Moore, along with Boymaster MacDonald and seamen Lamont and Campbell, stayed on the island to keep the lighthouse operational while reports were sent to the commissioners of northern lighthouses. The official investigation was about to begin, but no one could have anticipated the unsettling clues that would soon come to light. The logbook entries from the Flannan Isles lighthouse provide a crucial clues about the final days of the missing keepers. The last recorded entries were made on December 13, but notes for the following days, December 14 and the morning of December 15, were found on a slate, ready to be transcribed into the logbook later. This detail is important because it confirms that the men were alive and performing their duties up until midday on December 15. The notes recorded routine observations such as barometer and thermometer readings, the state of the wind, and even the time the light was extinguished on the morning of December 15. This suggests that everything was normal inside the lighthouse, at least for a while. The keepers had completed their morning duties and the lamp was prepped to be lit again that evening. But then, something changed. There were no further entries beyond that slate notation. The men never got the chance to copy the notes into the official logbook. We also know from Joseph Moore's account that the fire in the kitchen had been out for some time, and that the beds were left unmade, indicating that the men had not returned inside after leaving. If they had gone out expecting to return soon, perhaps to check on equipment or secure something near the western landing, why didn't they? The details of the clothing left behind add another layer to the mystery. 2 of the men, Ducat and Marshall, were dressed in protective gear, sea boots and oilskins, while MacArthur, the occasional keeper, left behind his coat and went out in just his shirt sleeves. This suggests an urgency. Ducat and Marshall may have been following standard procedure, dressing appropriately for rough weather. But MacArthur? He may have rushed out without proper protection, possibly in response to an emergency rather than a routine task. Superintendent Robert Muirhead believed the men were simply victims of nature's wrath. The evidence seemed to point in that direction. The missing outdoor gear, the violent storms reported in the area, and the dangerous conditions near the landings where they stored supplies. It made sense. If something had been damaged by the weather, the keepers would have had no choice but to go out and secure it. That was part of the job. But the ocean is unforgiving. A single rogue wave, massive and sudden, could have easily caught them off guard, pulling them into the freezing depths without a trace. And that's exactly how the records chose to remember them. Probably drowned. Their names, once belonging to experienced men who had weathered countless storms, were reduced to a single red-inked entry in the lighthouse register. James Ducat, a husband and father of 4, gone. Thomas Marshall, a son and brother, lost. Donald MacArthur, leaving behind a wife and children, vanished. No goodbyes, no remains, just an empty lighthouse and an enduring mystery. Now, if that explanation satisfies you, you might be able to walk away from this case, file it away in the tragic but explainable category, and move on. But if you're like me, if you have that itch that won't let you accept something at face value, you'll find yourself asking, is that really all there is to it? Over the years, people have dug deep, dissecting every known fact, questioning every piece of evidence, and let's just say, things have gotten weird. Some believe the official report was a cover-up, that something darker happened on that island. Others swear by the idea that supernatural forces played a role. After all, lighthouses have always been the perfect setting for ghost stories, haven't they? And then there are the theories that spiral into complete absurdity. The kind that make you wonder if people just want to believe in something more. Because while the logical answer is right there, written in the official reports, the real story, the one that keeps people awake at night, that's still wide open. So let's break this down. We are starting with the most logical explanations, just straightforward, unfortunate accidents. The freak wave theory. This is the one most experts stand by. A sudden, towering wave, powerful enough to yank 3 grown men right off the island. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense. The damage near the landing site suggests that something with immense force struck the area. Bent railings, missing equipment, a lifebuoy ripped away. These aren't small signs of wear and tear. This is destruction. If the keepers had stepped outside to check the storm damage or secure loose supplies, they would have been completely exposed. No time to react. No chance to escape. 1 second they are standing on the rocky shore. The next, they are gone. Dragged into the sea. Swallowed by the churning waves. Next, we have the accidental theory. Now, this one is a bit simpler. One of the men slipped while trying to check on something, and the others rushed to help, only to meet the same tragic fate. The island's cliffs are steep, the wind is brutal, and the rain would have made everything slick and treacherous. It's not hard to picture someone losing their footing, especially if they were carrying equipment or trying to secure a lifeline. And number 3, a fight gone wrong. Think about it. 3 men, isolated on a remote island, living in harsh conditions for weeks on end. No real escape from each other. No distractions. Just the same daily routine, the same small space, the same faces. What if something snapped? Maybe tensions had been building. Maybe there was already bad blood between them. The stress, the storm, the sheer isolation. It is enough to push anyone over the edge. And if a fight did break out, it wouldn't have taken much for things to turn deadly. A shove too close to the cliff, a struggle near the water's edge, one moment of anger, and suddenly all 3 men are in the sea, lost forever. So if none of these fully explained what happened, then what else could it be? So now we are stepping away from logic and diving headfirst into the realm of the bizarre, the supernatural, and the downright unbelievable. Number 1, we've got the giant seabird theory. Yes, you heard that right. Some believe that a massive mutant seabird snatched the men right off the island. Maybe an albatross the size of a small craft, or some prehistoric sea eagle that nobody has seen before. The ocean is home to some huge birds, sure, but let's be real. A single bird, no matter how massive, isn't carrying off 3 fully grown, likely struggling men. Number 3. Foreign spies did it. The idea is that the lighthouse keepers saw something they weren't supposed to. Maybe a secret military test, an enemy vessel, or something that made them a liability. The theory goes that a group of spies, or maybe an early version of a special ops team, swooped in, silenced them, and left without a trace. Number 3. Ghost pirates. The idea here is that a ghost ship, crewed by long-dead pirates, emerged from the mist and took the keepers as their latest victims. Maybe they were cursed. Maybe they had some unfinished business, or maybe they just wanted company in the afterlife. Number 4. Phantom of the Seven Hunters. Now, this theory has a bit more weight. Not because it's necessarily true, but because it taps into the island's dark history. The Flannan Isles were once called the Seven Hunters, and folklore suggests that spirits haunted the land long before the lighthouse was built. Some say the keepers angered these ancient forces simply by being there, and the spirits lured them to their doom. Number 5. Sea monster attack. Because of course, we can't have a maritime mystery without something lurking in the deep. Some say it was a kraken, others think it was something like the Loch Ness Monster. A massive creature could, in theory, drag someone into the sea. But 3 men? From an elevated position? Without a single clue left behind? Number 6. Alien abduction. You knew this was coming. It's the go-to explanation for any disappearance that defies logic. The theory suggests that extraterrestrials swooped down, took the keepers, and left no trace behind. No distress signals, no footprints, no wreckage, just 3 missing men. And last, they chose to vanish. And finally, we have the idea that maybe, just maybe, the keepers weren't taken by something. They left on their own. Maybe they were tired of the isolation, the grueling work, the endless storms. Perhaps they planned their disappearance, staged the scene, and slipped away in the night, starting new lives somewhere far from the Flannan Isles. It's not impossible, but it is unlikely. Abandoning their families, career, and everything they knew would have been extreme. Not to mention, how would they have escaped in the middle of rough seas without anyone noticing? It's easy to get caught up in theories, giant waves, ghost pirates, spies, and monsters. But at the core of it all, this isn't just a spooky story. These were real people. They had families waiting for them. They had lives beyond that lighthouse. And yet all that's left of them is an unsolved mystery. Their disappearance wasn't just a headline. It was a tragedy. It left loved ones without answers, and it left behind a lighthouse forever haunted by their absence. And yet, despite everything, despite the investigations, the speculation, the endless debates, we still don't know what really happened on the Flannan Isle. So what do you think? A freak accident? A supernatural force? Or something we haven't even considered yet? Whatever happened on that island, one thing is certain. It left behind more questions than answers. And maybe, just maybe, that's why this mystery refuses to fade.